Good morning, students. We've been looking yesterday at the social, political, and military organization of Mongols. Now, you have to understand, as I reiterated yesterday, that for a Mongol empire, because it was a nomadic empire, it was extremely difficult to actually come up with an effective and a workable social, political, and military organization. Because for institutions or the empires where which are stationary, which are sedentary, it is easy because you take over something from the previous generation, which might have worked on it, and of course would have worked on it, something which it inherited from its previous generation. So there is a convention, there is a tradition, there is a precedence of things. But in case of Mongols, it was the sheer ambition of Genghis Khan that he actually conquered from one part of Mongolia, that is one part of the geography of Asia, to right till the Europe and to the right till the western fringes of Asia. So naturally, he encountered a huge variety of tribes, kingdoms, empires, and all of them were now a part of Mongol Empire. So now it is just acquisition was not enough. You have looted, you have plundered, all that was fine. As traditionally and historically it has been known as the spoils of war. But the point is now you have to make them work. Now you have to bring them under one unit, which is yours, because you just do not want to be known in history as a marauder or some kind of plunderer, and that's it. The Mongols had now the ambitions of being known as empire builders as well. So that would need to set. Now you have to set up a whole different kind of institution. That would mean working with different kinds of people and treating them respectfully, equally, and only then would the system work. If you have a system where you think that only Mongols would be treated as the first class citizens, and all the conquered and the occupied territories, the people from those places would be treated as the second class or the third class citizens, then that system is bound to crumble. That system is bound to fall. So now you have to treat all of them equally. Then you have to create institutions for that. And guys, that's today we would just continue with it. And in this new hierarchy, Genghis Khan assigned the responsibility of governing the newly conquered people to his four sons. These comprised the four ulus, a term that did not originally mean fixed territories. Genghis Khan's lifetime was still the age of rapid conquests and expanding domains, where frontiers were still extremely fluid. That means they kept changing. For example, the eldest son, Jochi, received the Russian steppes, but Russian steppes would mean here Russian grasslands. But the farthest extent of his territory, Ulus, was intermediate. It extended as far west as his horses could roam. The second son, Chagatai, was given the Transoxian steppe, that is the areas in Central Asia, where you call them the areas of Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan, those areas, Turkmenistan, they are known as the Transoxian steppe, and the lands north of the Pamir Mountains, adjacent to those of his brothers. Pamir Mountain would also be in the northern Pakistan and the Afghanistan area. Now, presumably, these lands would shift as Jochi marched westwards. Genghis Khan had indicated that his son, the third son, Ogadei, would succeed him as the great Khan, and on accession, the prince established his capital at Karakoram. The youngest son, Tolui, received the ancestral lands of Mongolia. Genghis Khan envisaged that his sons would rule the empire collectively, and to underline this point, military contingents, tama, of individual princes were placed in each ulus. The sense of a dominion shared by the members of the family was underlined at the assembly of chieftains, Quarreltais, where all decisions relating to the family or the state for the forthcoming season, campaigns, distribution of plunder, pasture, lands, and successions were collectively taken. Students, you have to understand that uh, uh, for people who would just know very few things in life, was loot, plunder, amazing horse riding, going off to sleep at night after a after, probably hours of drinking, and then waking up in the morning, and then every day, literally and literally, we just today we just we just use it as a cliche, and we just use it because it is fashionable to use it. But then these are the people who actually lived this proverb that every day is a new day, because for them it actually was every day was a new day. And for those kind of people who for generations have lived like every day a new day, now you have to set up institutions where you have to make now things predictable, that this is what would happen at 8 o'clock in the morning, this is what is supposed to happen at this time, this is what is supposed to be done by this department, this is what is supposed to be done by that department. All of that now had to be put in order. Standard operating procedures had to be devised for them. So Genghis Khan had already fashioned a rapid courier system that connected the distant areas of his regime. Fresh mounts and dispatch riders were placed in outposts at regularly spaced distances. Guys, this was something which was remarkable not just for the Mongols. This was remarkable even in the Chinese empires. The empires, because students, you have to understand, the Chinese empire and the Chinese society and civilization is as old as the Indian society or civilization is. And the Chinese were also masters of, because they had massive geographies to take care of, and they naturally needed very efficient postal systems. They needed very efficient information system whereby any kind of threat could be informed to the local governors and definitely to the emperors much much in advance. So that is why they had very elaborate mechanisms to ensure that. So, for maintenance of this communication system of the Mongol nomads contributed a tenth of their herd, either horses or livestock, as provisions. The courier system YAM was further refined after Genghis Khan's death, and its speed and reliability surprised travelers. It enabled the great Khans to keep a check on the developments at the farthest end of the regime across the continental landmass. Guys, you have to understand, because now the Mongols were empire builders, right from Europe to Baghdad to, you just name it, everywhere. Actually, wherever you set your eyes on, it would be probably Mongol Empire. So naturally, they needed very, very efficient and very fast communication systems. And that is how, because it was definitely helped by the fact that Mongols were great horsemen. So they were extremely fast and agile, and they did not need the rest, the kind of rest which the other people could. Because if you remember, I said it right in the beginning of this chapter. It was said that Mongols could sleep on horses even when the horses were running, because they were that good at it. So the conquered people, however, hardly felt a sense of affinity with their new nomadic masters. During the campaigns in the first half of the 13th century, cities were destroyed, agricultural lands laid waste, trade and handicraft production disrupted, tens of thousands of people, the exact figures are lost in the exaggerated reports of the time, were killed. Even more enslaved, all classes of people from elites to the peasantry suffered. In the resulting instability, the underground canals called kantas in the arid Iranian plateau could no longer receive periodic maintenance as they fell into despair, or rather disrepair. The desert crept in, and this led to the ecological devastation from which parts of Khorasan never recovered. Um, Guys, this is something, if you happen to be the occupied territory, then life is never easy. Things are never simple. Like, you guys, Iraq is not what it used to be 20 years ago. Libya is not what it used to be 10 years ago. Syria is not what it used to be 6, 7 years ago. So, guys, uh, once that is gone, you can never compare with what there was, right? Because things take years and years and generations to build, but all that can go off in a spoof within 2 years. So, and then regaining all that, what has been lost, it is and it was never easy. So, commerce and travel across the Silk Route reached its peak under the Mongols, but unlike before, the trade routes did not terminate in China, right? Because now it went completely, Mongols had become great masters of trade. Because students, you have to understand, and the one very important thing, I'm sure most of you are economics students who are listening here, guys, no society can prosper without trade and commerce. Trade and commerce is actually a prerequisite to the prosperity of any society, for that matter. And it was also for the Mongol Empire. So they continued north into Mongolia and to Karakoram, the heart of the new empire. Communication and ease of travel was vital to retain the coherence of the Mongol regime, and the travelers were given a pass, paisa in Persian, uh, for safe conduct. Traders paid the Baj tax for the same purpose, all acknowledging thereby the authority of the Mongol Khan. Guys, this was something not just unique to Mongols again. This was something which all the ancient empires and the kingdoms used to have, whereby a pass was given, because that was the stamp of authority of the ruler within the confines of particular geography, because that's what said, that's yes, if you have a pass, yes, you can go anywhere within the empire without any restrictions. Okay, of course a few questions could be asked, but without restrictions, because that actually is a display of the writ of the state. Yes, because this is Uttarakhand, and I'm the chief minister, and my writ runs from this part of Uttarakhand to that part of Uttarakhand, right? So this was the same with all the empires, even during the ancient times, where they had a pass, and you could actually move within those territories. The contradictions between the nomadic and sedentary elements within the Mongol Empire uh, eased through the 13th century, and in 1230s, for example, as the Mongols waged their successful war against Qin dynasty of North China, there was a strong pressure group within the Mongol leadership that advocated the massacre of all peasantry and the conversion of their fields into pasture lands. But by 1270s, guys, this is a very interesting thing. By 1270s, when South China was annexed to the Mongol Empire after the defeat of the Sung dynasty, Genghis Khan's grandson Kublai appeared as the protector of peasants and the cities. So essentially, it is trying to tell you that because their interaction, when they might have started their journey as the looters and the plunderers and the rapists and every infamy that is there in the world, but then gradually they understood that this is not that's not how umpires are built. You have to take everyone along, because that might have been a great idea when they were leading lives of nomads, today here, tomorrow there. But once you start coming up with a sedentary mechanism of doing things, then you have to take everyone along, because beheading people and killing them and torturing them is not the best way in if you actually want to be an empire builder, because you have to take everyone along, inspire confidence among different people that you have conquered. All these things are not easy tasks. That's what it is trying to tell you, that how in the early part, when they used to loot and plunder, by the time of Kublai Khan, that is definitely much after Genghis Khan, that's about 50, 60 years after Genghis Khan, things had to dramatically changed, because now they were empire builders. They could not behave impulsively like their forefathers did when they led just a nomadic life. Thanks.